we'll go from there. So, the whole panel again is really focused on the news coming out of Hidalgo and Cameron County, and each one of you serves a different purpose in terms of the coaches, the sports you coach, the areas you coach in, the size of the schools, and then even talking with Coach Tino Villarreal, we have a completely different program with TAPS versus UIL. So we're going to try to grab each different perspective. And the first news that came out was Hidalgo County. And so, Coach Campbell, I start with you with hearing that news. Obviously, there was a sense of fear kind of coming out from all of this, and really a sense of uncertainty is probably the better word. So now at least getting a set date, what does that do for you and your program moving forward?
Well, there's still a tremendous amount of questions that I think, we're wading through as we speak that still requires UIL interpretations. We're looking across the state. We're noticing that the September 7th date seems to be a little bit more consistent than, of course, the news that came out of Houston ISD today. So I still think there needs to be something that we get from the UIL in terms of potentially delaying the season. What that looks like if we have pockets of school districts and or counties that are deciding to delay us getting back into action, what that looks like. And we still don't have those answers.
And so when you think about football, despite having an actual set date now, I was speaking to another coach yesterday, and it seems that even if there is a start date when you guys are allowed back on campus with face-to-face work and just face-to-face interaction, it still takes about, 3 weeks for teams to get ready to play football and to get back into football shape. So, Coach Campbell, we'll start with you, kind of speak on that. And then, Coach James, what's that going to look like over at Rio Hondo?
Again, whether it's 2 weeks, I think 3 weeks is probably a little bit more realistic. But I think you could pull it off in 2 weeks if you had to. Now, again, that's kind of, we're in uncharted territory, so to speak. I would say 2 weeks after coming through a normal summer strength and conditioning program and a normal off-season program. There's a lot of unknowns, but I think it could be done in 2 weeks. I'm curious to see what happens with Travis County. I think there's a push up there with Lake Travis's of the world to potentially have an exception written within the framework of their local health authority to where their football teams will have the opportunity to potentially go in 2 weeks prior. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I have heard scuttlebutt of that. So I think we're on the right on the, Hidalgo County was one of the first to kind of make this approach it from this angle. So I think we're right at the front end of kind of having some clarity about what the date looks like, what the sports look like moving forward past whatever respective dates we're restricted to.
Yeah, clarity is nice. Coach James, now that you have a little bit of clarity, what's the move for the Bobcats?
It's going to be a tough situation starting in September, and we really didn't get any strength and conditioning done at all. We went 2 days only. So I think, like Coach Campbell said, 2 weeks is going to be pushing it. I think if we had a 3 week span before the season could actually get going, I think we'll have to eliminate a lot of those non-district games and maybe just get into the meat of the season. Being pushed back so far like that. But if it gets pushed any further, if it gets into October, I don't think there'll be a season at all, just because, needing 2 to 3 weeks to get started, we'd already be close to November, and, season ends first week in November. So it's going to be a tough deal. I'm hoping that, people do what they're supposed to do and do their social distancing and stay home. And hopefully this thing gets a little bit better so we can get to school and go to the face-to-face. I know the start date being pushed into September hurt a lot of these kids, but it's for the best. We're trying to do what's right for our communities. I know Hidalgo County got hit hard. All the testing they're doing over there is really pumping up their numbers big time. But the numbers are big everywhere, even here in Cameron County. We have it bad also. So it's one of those things. Hopefully it gets going September 8th, September 7th. Whatever that start date actually is. And If we can get to that point, then I think we can move forward. But it's so hard to say, not knowing even if it's going to start then, because they've been pushing these dates all summer, all the way to now. They've been pushing these dates. So if they get pushed any further, football is going to be very tough to do right now. Maybe they'll do something. UIL might do something to switch it, to change it to the fall, but I doubt it. I know they say they're against that completely, but you never know. Losing a football season's tough with all the band members and cheerleaders and pep squads and people that make money at the games from the concession stands, and so losing a whole year really devastates a lot of people.
Yeah, especially for a smaller program like over at Rio Hondo. And Cameron County may not have to wait as long as Hidalgo County, but it does pose a lot of questions. Specifically, is it worth it? So Coach Guest, for a school like Hanna, you guys do have the idea of at least getting to play with an idea of, hey, maybe we can just keep it in Brownsville and play with, BISD, or maybe bring a school like Rio Hondo in or St. Joe and create maybe a little mini league. But at that point, is it worth it? And we saw what happened when one kid in BISD was tested positive and how everything was shut down. So how do you move forward? And at the end of the day, what is it going to take to actually get something going? Did Coach leave us?
You muted yourself, Mark.
I didn't want y'all to hear me. All right. It's gonna take a huge downturn in numbers, I think, of infections and then also hospitalizations, because if we get going with all this stuff, the hospital systems right now are already overwhelmed. If we try to add to that by getting back in school and then the participation with athletics, cases could just go through the roof and people could die. So, we're doing the right thing by holding off. As coaches, we hate it because we want to be with the kids and we want to be teaching and coaching them and helping bring these kids along the way and help them grow into great young adults. But unfortunately, life kind of is a lot more important right now than a game. And, I think as long as we can continue to help promote wearing the face mask and staying apart, staying at home when you can, only going out when you're absolutely necessary. I think all those things, if they'll come into play, we can knock this thing down, but it's going to take everybody.
With as big a district as you have in Brownsville, is it worth exploring any kind of intercity leagues or intercity play? Should maybe numbers in Brownsville in particular, or maybe Cameron County versus Hidalgo County, go down?
I mean, it's something that certainly we could look at. Would it be worth it or not? It would be worth it to every senior, I'll tell you that, because it's their last hurrah. So, for some kids, it would be very well worth it to do something as long as there's no threat of spreading the infections. So, but if there's still a chance of spreading the infections, it's not worth it.
Yeah, and so this is obviously all from the UIL side. We're all waiting for UIL to make their announcement come next Monday. We'll see what they come out with that, but it seems like it's just pushing the goalpost a little further back. Now, we do have a completely different governing body over with TAPS, and though you are very much a part of the Brownsville ecosystem at St. Joe, Coach Tino, what is the climate over with TAPS that maybe people aren't as familiar with? And how does the Cameron County mandate specifically affect St. Joe, or at least bring them closer to what UIL and BISD are doing or dealing with at the very least?
Well, we have a unique opportunity here at St. Joe because we're such a small school. So we're an open campus. You open the door from every classroom and you're outside. We're a small school, so the small school setting actually is our advantage right now. We really were looking forward to bringing kids back on campus face to face. Obviously, the county mandate puts like a big damper for us because we want to give families options to do that and do it as soon as possible. We're in a unique opportunity, but as far as TAPS is concerned, I mean, TAPS is allowing each member school to make a decision. We're excited to play fall sports as soon as possible. We want to bring kids back on campus. We did our strength and conditioning for 3 weeks, and we had a positive test here as well. But our administration, this is a daily thing. It's changing daily. And our administration's meeting daily on trying to create a safe environment. Not a lot of people maybe look at this in a sense of it's going to go away and you can put a September 8th date, a September 27th date, an October date. The date's not going to change the pandemic. This is going to be something that we have to learn to live with. And we have to keep our environments as safe as possible. And we have to look at not being a place that can spread this, because we have to be socially responsible. We understand that hospital beds are overused, and I mean, there's just not enough medical treatment right now down here, and we don't want to contribute to that, but we've got to learn to live with this new normal. And that's something that we're really looking at here at St. Joe, and trying to figure out how we can get our fall sports going as soon as possible and get our face-to-face on campus here as soon as possible as well.
Yeah, definitely a little bit more flexibility. The only school that actually had more workouts or a longer workout period than St. Joe was Mission Veterans. And Coach Lerma, you bring a completely different voice to this conversation, because volleyball in and of itself has a bit more flexibility, specifically with how many games you can play in a day, how the format goes. Okay. With how much flexibility you have and the amount of games you can get going, and also just the ability to actually move the sport around, because it's an indoor sport and you have that flexibility. So at least from your perspective, with the mandate pushing things back, are you as worried as maybe your football counterparts are, or what are some of your thoughts moving forward with how volleyball can progress next season?
Yeah, well, I know, Leah, with strength and conditioning, we had like 250, and we had I mean, everybody had to go and help. I mean, the social distancing was one of the hardest things to do, because, I mean, everything had to be in cones, or people, once we went indoors, you know, we had to take the floor, allowing them, and it's very hard to keep these kids, being that they hadn't seen each other since last spring break. So it was difficult. So we kept, you know, telling them, go to the tape, but it's something that was so new to us that even outside being with 250, you know, football, I mean, multi-sports and stuff. I mean, you know, Coach Gilpin, I mean, he made it a go, and I mean, the kids were just excited coming out of the houses. I mean, you could tell that right away, and it was it's just something, you know, that the kids, if we told them to wear the mask, and I know one of the things was wear the mask indoors as well while you're training, and that was hard to do for me to be talking through the mask as they were actually going through, you know, some of the drills with the mask. So it's just something new that's going on, but the kids did whatever they were told. I mean, at the first day they wanted to wear their face mask as headbands, and said, no, take them down. I'm like, if you want this to continue, you hear what we're trying to do, because, you know, not get somebody else infected or whatever, because it's new. I mean, how do we get it? How does it get? And, you know, it was just something that these kids will do whatever they're told if they want the sport to continue, or, you know, to get those numbers down on anybody getting infected, because kids want to share water, I mean, you had to shut down the restrooms, the water fountains. Everybody had to bring their own. Don't share, don't get, I mean, it's hard to do with kids.
Yeah, at some point, again, we asked the same question. It's the same with football and volleyball. Is it worth it? And I want to go back to football here in a second, but before I do, Coach Lerma, should the option to play out a volleyball season in the spring be a realistic possibility? Would that be something that you would be happy with, or something that you would take on and really run with?
Oh, was anything for us to even participate? I mean, I saw the spring sports, and it was a shame, because, I mean, all the seniors, like you said, you think of the seniors that didn't have that opportunity to finish their season, and that's what they were waiting for. If with volleyball, I mean, we're, you know, excited and we're waiting to bring more people up in the stands. I mean, but if that's a possibility from not playing and playing, heck, we'll play when in the spring if it has to. But, you know, I know the girls are excited. Coach, are we going? Like, hey, it's a go. Like, but, you know, everything's so new, like, that it's just a shame to see those numbers increasing. But then, just like you said, there's a lot more testing going on.
Yeah, it's just one big old waiting game at this point. So again, it all goes back to the question of, is it worth it? And again, it seems there's more flexibility with volleyball, but when it comes to football, and Coach Campbell, I'll go back to you and we'll open this question up to the rest of the coaches, is at what point is it not worth it? Assuming that fall football is not, or excuse me, spring football is not an option, and clearly winter football, maybe in the Valley might be possible, but I doubt those Amarillo boys are going to be out there in January. So assuming that this timeline stays put, it might be possible, but if it keeps getting pushed back, at what point is it, hey, we just got to cut the cord and count our losses?
Well, I think I don't think we've explored all opportunities, all venues, and that's why my original answer was I really think the UIL and I, by no means do I envy their position, because a lot of these decisions at this particular juncture are kind of a lose-lose proposition. But the reality is we have from the start of school year until June to play. The junior college leagues have already, there's already been states that have moved things back, whether it be to the spring or hybrid schedules where they're knocking things back into the winter. I don't think that we can discount the opportunity. I think Coach Villarreal said it perfectly. If this is the new norm, at a certain point, we're going to have to take steps to get back to face-to-face, to continue to derive the benefits of athletics. I mean, we can't discount that athletics is a really, really important part of a young man and a young lady's education. We all know that. That's why we do what we do. So whatever that date is, if we get pushed back to an October date, I don't think we just throw football season in the trash. I think we need to explore every opportunity to give those kids the chance to be a part of something. I'd hate to look at one of those seniors in the eye, and they never had an opportunity to experience the quote unquote Friday night lights. I think that would be a shame. I think realistically, though, if the UIL is not going to explore anything other than the normal first semester football season, I think if we get too far past that September 7th deadline, we start to approach the month of October. I don't see how it's going to be feasible, particularly if they hold to any form of an acclimation period, which I think all the football coaches would agree. You're not just going to be able to assemble your football team and go out there and play in 2 or 3 days. That also puts kids' health at risk.
Yeah, I think, and I don't mean to cut the rest of the coaches off, but Coach Campbell, you brought up my final point, and I want to end on this because you guys have already given me too much of your time, and I really appreciate that. But I'd like the rest of the coaches to kind of speak on this as well. Is, we tend to forget that, caught up in all the politics, caught up in all the regulations, and of course health is at the forefront, but we tend to forget the athletes and how important the sports are for these athletes. So when you look at the seniors and you look at the kids who are trying to get recruited and are trying to just enjoy their last season, what does that mean, at least from a coach's perspective, to continue to drive that motivation, or at least that hope for these kids, and continue to provide those opportunities moving forward that they may not have anymore? And Coach James, you can go ahead and start. You're muted, Coach. You're muted.
Coach Campbell said it the best. If UIL is not willing to move the end date of football season, then if they move the September date any further, we won't be able to get a football season in. But if they're willing to actually move that date to a December date and give us time to acclimate it and get a season through, then that would be great. And for the seniors, it's all about their last season. And I know, even when the season ended this last year in March, kids were heartbroken. Seniors were heartbroken. I felt for them. Baseball players, track kids, softball girls. And it was very tough. And can you imagine a whole football season not happening because of COVID would be a very tough pill to take for these senior football players and volleyball players, and all seniors in general. It's going to be a tough pill to swallow if they don't get their sport in. Somehow or another, get it in.
Yeah, Coach Guest, we saw what our boy Mr. Estevez, Brandon, faced, especially with powerlifting alone. I can't imagine if he had lost his football season. So when you look at your seniors, how do you continue to motivate them? And should there not be a football season, is there anything that you as coaches can do for these kids to kind of give them whatever opportunities they could have, or at least some of the excitement they missed out on for football season?
Well, I get that question a lot from kids, from the seniors especially. Hey, coach, are we still going to play? Are we still going to play? And all I can tell them is, we're planning to play. We're planning on playing until they tell us something otherwise. So, we're hopefully, they have the right frame of mind, and they're getting themselves ready physically with the at-home workouts, and also through our virtual meetings where we're going through offense and defense and stuff like that. But at the same time, we got to be realistic, and like Coach Campbell and Rocky alluded to, if they're going to be flexible and push this stuff back, then there's a good chance we could end up playing. We may not have very many fans, which is fine. We just want these kids to have the experience and opportunity to be able to have that senior year. And, because we've been having them for a long time as coaches, and we're going to have more, but we want this group of kids, because these are this year's group, and we want them to be able to experience all of that.
Yeah, and you talk about a tight-knit group. I mean, it's hard to get much tighter than St. Joseph Academy, with just the size of the class in general, specifically with senior class numbers in recent history. So, Coach Tino, from you guys seem to have at least the most flexibility right now, and your league is a bit smaller than UIL is. So, are you a bit more optimistic? And what kind of message are you giving your senior class, and really just the team in general, during these times?
Well, a couple of things. The first thing is that, politics aside, I'm looking to our local leaders and people to start having a discussion about how we're going to live through this pandemic. I think hiding from it and keep pushing dates back, and there's no magic pill there. Looking at it realistically, let's say we start September 8th and we get our kids ready to play October, and one kid pops positive, and then you're not going to play the game. You're going to have to shut it down for 14 days. And by the time it's November and you try to play a season, and you're not going to give the kids the experience that they deserve, I think there's a lot of talk about, guessing how far to push things back and how far to push things back, when I think the discussion that needs to be had is, what happens when a kid does test positive? At what point do you shut the entire team down? At what point do you say we're not playing this Friday or the next coming Friday? Those type of discussions, I don't, like the coaches here said, I don't envy people in those positions, but I'm looking for strong local leadership here as well, because we have local leaders making some pretty stern decisions, but we're not looking at it from a solution standpoint. And for our kids, they deserve for us to give them solutions. And if the solution is to push it back to the spring, well, then let's do whatever we can to make that happen. TAPS is going to follow whatever UIL does, period. We're too small of an entity. So if the UIL pushes it back to the spring, we're going to be pushed back to the spring. The UIL wants to start in October, we're going to start in October. We have a lot of flexibility here locally, but at the end of the day, we're going to follow whatever UIL is going to do. And we just want to give our kids an opportunity to do something with us, because they're going to do it without us. They're going to go to private trainings, and they're going to go do all these other things. And I'm just a firm believer in the coaching ability of coaches and educators in the lives of kids. And I'm not diminishing what they're going to do elsewhere, but part of the school community and part of representing your school colors and having influential individuals like all the coaches on this panel is really what shapes young men and women in the future. It's that long bond, it's the locker room, it's everything else that we can offer our kids. So I'm optimistic. It's like the coaches, we're getting kids excited every day. They're asking us, but at some point we have to start looking at solutions, because all we're going to do is keep pushing that date back and keep creating false positives in the lives of our kids, saying September 8th, and then at what point do we extend that to October, and at what point do we shut it down for the fall, and at what point do we do that? So it's a tough gig out there, and I feel for all the kids, and I feel for all the coaches and teachers, because everyone's looking out for, first and foremost, it's the health and safety of our community. That is the most important thing. But at the same time, as coaches, we're in a real tough spot too, because I know everyone here is chomping at the bit to get out there and coach the kids and be part of their lives.
Coach Tino wants to play some offense, maybe a little less defense. Sounds like the St. Joe way, if you ask me. Coach Letterman, we've got about 2 minutes. If you've got anything else you'd like to add on your players and your seniors, and how you'll approach getting them back on the court and having the experience they deserve.
Well, like I said, hearing these men or coaches speak, knowledge is power, and we do control the leaders of the school districts of our community, and I know we just want an opportunity. I mean, who's there to say, oh, you're the one that's going to be testing positive? I mean, we just don't know. It's a new norm, and we want to be given the opportunity to say, hey, these kids are going to do what they're asked to do. And it's just being very disciplined, very organized, and very controlled environments, because it is a virus. I mean, how can we control that? But we're ready to play. They're ready to play. They keep calling, but hey, we do what we're told.
That's the best we can do at the end of the day. Well, overall, we've got about a minute here left. But coaches, I just wanted to thank you so much for taking the time today to join me and also just to share your thoughts. Really appreciate each and every one of you. I think so highly of all you guys and all the work you're doing. And I hope you guys get to do that very soon. But until then, we wait and we hope. So I hope to see you back on the field or the court sooner rather than later. But until then, fish, talk to players, and enjoy the rest of the day. Okay, coaches?
Thanks for having me.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan.
Take care, guys.
Take care.
Thanks, Dan.
Appreciate it.
Bye.